Today we're going to talk about blood and the importance of blood as one of the most important things in overall health. And specifically in terms of blood, the pH of your blood, so the power of hydrogen in your blood and how breath can affect it. Because what we come to find is breath is arguably, if not the most important factor in your blood health, your blood pH, which is the alkalinity or acidity in your body, which really is one of the most important things in overall well-being. So let's get into it. The first thing that we notice is that you have to be breathing through your nose. And you go to the Bible and you see that God breathes into the nostrils of Adam, right? He doesn't breathe into the mouth. But we see in clinical lab studies that the blood gets 80% more oxygenated with nasal breathing. Well, breathing through the nose, it humidifies, filters, and warms the air before it ever even hits your lungs. You also have tracks basically from your nose to your lungs, which have their built-in filtration systems and can activate the blood flow before it actually hits the lungs, while your mouth has none of that. Your mouth is not for breathing technically. So 80% more oxygen to the blood, it cannot be overstated as to how massive that is, because that's 4 times more oxygen. And what we're going to see is that oxygen is one of the most important things in creating cellular energy. And what we're also going to see is that being electronegative or repulsive is highly important in maintaining your body, and creating a better body is synonymous with essentially increasing the free electron count in your body and thereby expanding the space which you can exist in, right? Because when you have a dense amount of electrons, they all repel one another, which means they push out, create tension and growth. The opposite is you have a low amount of electrons, so you have electrons and protons, and they attract one another and pull yourself in. And that really is a root of a lot of diseases, is the fact that we're having attractive forces in the body, right? Because when you think about, you want things to exist separately. You want them to exist independently. You don't want your tendons to go into your foot, right? You don't want your lungs and your stomach to go together, right? You don't want them to attract each other. You want them to be negative. You want them to repel one another and exist as their function. So it just cannot be overstated how important it is to breathe through your nose and oxygenate your blood. And we come to see that it's a very quantifiable process. So essentially, what happens when you breathe in your nose, and most importantly, when you breathe out through your nose, because you have to breathe out through your nose as well. When you breathe out with your mouth, you let out CO2. And so contrary to what we've been kind of told, carbon dioxide is bad for you, right? Because you exhale it. Well, yes, it's too much is bad for you, because carbon dioxide is an acid, which means it has a pH under 7 on the 0 to 14 scale. This is the power of hydrogen. Okay? So too much CO2, yes, because it's an acid, so it's going to break down your bodily systems. But if we get too alkaline, the same kind of bad things happen. Essentially, when we're acidic, it dilates, and when we're alkaline, it constricts. So, right, this is a artery or vein. This is a vein that is in an acidic environment, say at 5, and this is a vein that's in an alkaline environment, say at 10. Okay, so we want a healthy middle, and we also want it to kind of fluctuate. While small amounts, we still do want it to fluctuate, and it naturally will fluctuate. So we want to control the fluctuation. But CO2 is very important in something called the Bohr effect, the Bohr process. The Bohr process. And this is the fact that we need CO2 in the body. We need CO2 in the body to oxygenate the blood, and then we're getting back to why it actually oxygenates the blood. It oxygenates the blood because this CO2 allows for hemoglobin, which is the blood molecule, hemoglobin, to release an oxygen molecule. And so having the CO2 allows the blood, which is, it's a combination of iron at the center, nitrogen, carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. It allows to release an oxygen into the blood, which oxygenates the blood. And what do we know about oxygen? It has a -2 charge. So this is where the free electrons are coming from. The free electrons are coming from the oxygen goes into the blood, and it essentially attracts electrons and puts electrons into the environment. So this is the fundamental reason behind which breathing through your nose is so important for this process, and why healthy CO2 levels are also vital to oxygenating your blood. You don't want to be on either end of the spectrum. So essentially what we see is that hydrogen is almost not a constant element like the others. And what we do know also about hydrogen, which makes it very much not like the others, is that it's capable of quantum tunneling. That's a big one. But essentially is what this means is it's so light that it can essentially instantly rearrange itself in different molecules. So this, although it looks like it's happening in time, it's almost separate from time in the sense that it's instantaneous, that the entire system will rearrange to fit in these hydrogens. And we see that there's these more stable stages like H9O5, which is the eigencation, and H5O2, which are super important compounds in the body. And so we see these large amounts of hydrogen and oxygen forming, and they all kind of facilitate each other's forming. And these large amounts of hydrogen, especially when connected to oxygen, essentially form a liquid like water does, like H2O. But when there's more hydrogen, it forms kind of this network of hydrogen that instantly rearranges itself because it's capable of quantum tunneling, which just means that it can exist in a superposition of states, essentially, and it can exist as a wave. So when a wave collides with another wave, the resultant wave is calculated, which is a combination or superposition of the two. It's not a magnitude at one plus the other, right? It's basically the middle between the two, or the result. So hydrogen becomes its own sort of deal, and it becomes a matrix that you have to that you have to really value, because it's also the acidic content in your body. So you want your acidic content to be highly ordered and highly arranged. And the more arranged it is, the more you'll be at homeostasis, or the more basically that your alkalinity will be preserved. You want to be in control of your alkalinity or acidity. You don't want it to control you. Okay, so one of the most important things with breath also is that when you breathe in CO2 plus the water in your body, the H2O, it exchanges into H2CO3, which is an acid. But this also then transfers into a free hydrogen, which allows for hydrogen bonding. This is what plays into this process where H3O transforms into H2O with a free hydrogen, and then constantly goes into this superposition, which creates this hydrogen network. This is where the free hydrogen comes from, and it's this free hydrogen plus bicarbonate, which is an alkaline, which is it's hydrogen, carbon, and 3 oxygens, which is alkaline. This alkalizes your blood. So when you breathe in a lot, you are hyperventilating. You raise your pH because you're putting more bicarbonate into it. And when you hold your breath and you let CO2 accumulate, you're acidifying your blood. So what are you doing? You're vasodilating. You're dilating the blood veins. You're allowing more blood flow to happen. You're allowing for better digestion. You're allowing for your body to reach homeostasis again. And then breathing and having activation breaths is going to raise your pH. It's going to constrict it. And so you can imagine that in the same way that you inhale and you exhale, right? You are alkalizing and then acidifying your blood. That is the inhalation and exhalation of the inhalation and exhalation. But yeah, you are physically alkalizing or acidifying your blood with every breath you take. And the regularity behind which you do this is the regularity behind which your blood gets oxygen. And the regularity behind which your blood gets oxygen is how much energy your mitochondria has to produce, because it can produce stable ATP and proton gradients. ATP production, which is the unit of energy in the body, needs these proton gradients. And when the proton gradients are consistently there, it has a consistent means of generating energy. And when you have more oxygen, you're more electronegative and you're more energetic because you have a stronger electric field, you have a stronger magnetic field. So this is all highly, highly important. And I mean, it's one of the, it's your body's natural healing system, right? What else in the body, like everything in the body kind of can do, heal itself. The body really is a self-healing mechanism. But herbs are oftentimes necessary, right? Diet is necessary. Consuming things, exchanging things is necessary. This system in your body, this breathing system, it literally allows you to alter your blood content by yourself. It also produces, breathing through your nose also produces nitric oxide, which is one of the most important antimicrobials and free radical scavengers that we have in our body. And also, breathing activates the vagus nerve, which is the most important nerve in your entire body. It connects your brain to your gut and to your nervous system, to the autonomic nervous system, to the parasympathetic nervous system. All these things are extremely intimately related. And in studies, there was a group of patients who all had high blood pressure, and they were put on breathing exercises for a month. This activated the vagus nerve, and every single one of them had a minimum 10% reduction in blood pressure from breathing, from literally breathing and just working with their blood. It's almost unparalleled in the body. And so that's why breathwork is so well documented, and it's always been one of the kind of constant things. Yeshua actually means breath. And something that also becomes important is you have to breathe from your abdomen. You have to breathe from your abdomen. You can't breathe from your chest and your lungs, right? Because no, you have to be rooted in the ground, and you have to have abdominal function that your lungs connect to, right? And so when you breathe in, your gut and your abdominal muscles pull down, and there's a tension created. And within this tension is the energetic production. So when we see and when we think about the pentagram, right, it's the 5, like when you stand with your arms out, right, there's the 2 sides, 2 legs, and then there's the top, which is the head, right? So what it really is about is describing the tension force in the body, right? The tension force in the body, you have an equal amount going all of these 5 ways. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? In different directions. 2 going to the side, obviously 2 going down, 1 going up. So this lung and breath and spinal section is the section that pushes upwards on the pentagram, and the side that goes down is very much the abdominal muscles connected to the 2 lungs, the 2 spokes, which become the legs, but they actually are the lungs, which pull down and compress energy and create a balanced tension force. So take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your nose. The mouth is for talking. When you work out, breathe through your nose as much as you can. And you'll find that all of a sudden you're feeling more oxygen. All of a sudden the workout's actually better because you're producing this nitric oxide. You're getting a better pump. You're literally putting more oxygen in your body, in your veins. You feel more energized. This is the way it's supposed to be. Holy fuck. You're more able to react to things.